Hi, my name is Niall Kennedy, and I'm a fourth-year physics PhD student in Professor Seamus Davis's research group in University College Cork. Today I'm going to talk briefly on our recent work on the detection of orbital ordering in the high-temperature superconductor Bi2Sr2CaCu2O. So the CO2 unit cell is key to superconductivity in the cuprates, which Bi2Sr2CaCu2O is one of, and it's long been proposed that Coulombic interactions between the electrons on the orbitals of these oxygen atoms may lift the energy degeneracy and produce an electronic nematic phase. In this work, we introduce sublattice resolved imaging of the charge transfer energy epsilon or. By doing so, we discover powerful intra-unit cell symmetry breaking and pinpoint a mechanism for this nematic phase. So in the first panel here, a schematic is shown describing planar oxygen orbital order, and this would be seen as a difference in the charge transfer energy between oxygen atoms in the x direction versus the y direction. So here is the CO2 unit cell, or a schematic of it. So you have the copper atom in the center. You've got, in the y direction, you've got 2 oxygens, and in the x direction, you have 2 oxygens. So between nearest neighbors, if you introduce a VPP term, a Coulombic interaction between these two, into the 3-band Emery model, many theoretical predictions will show that this will create a nematic phase and lift the energy degeneracy. And how this would look would be that you would have a charge transfer energy on the OX side, which would be different to the charge transfer energy on the OY side. Also here I show a lot of experimental evidence of C4 symmetry breaking in these cuprate superconductors. This is done using many techniques such as ARPES, neutron scattering, and many more across all the different members of the cuprate family. And even more interestingly, this C4 symmetry breaking seems to onset with the pseudo gap, which still remains mysterious. So to investigate this effect, we used atomic resolution high voltage mapping from about minus 1.5 volts to plus 2 volts. And this was done on 17% hold-doped Bi2Sr2CaCu2O at 4 Kelvin with a junction resistance of approximately 85 gigaohms. So 85 gigaohms would be quite a high junction resistance, and this was done to preserve the sample surface during such high voltage mapping. So in the top row, I show the topography, and this is the topography of the bismuth oxide surface. And then next to this, I show the Fourier transform of this, and in the blue and the red, I've marked the QI and QX Bragg peaks respectively. And then if we take a line cut from the center of this out to these Bragg peaks, that's what I've shown here in the third panel. And now what you can see is that the intensity of these Bragg peaks is very similar. What this tells you is that C4 symmetry is preserved in this field of view. And this is important because it tells you that C4 symmetry is not being broken by either the atomic structure itself or by the STM scan tip that we used. So now, simultaneously, we measured the variance of the charge transfer energy delta epsilon and in the same field of view. And now if we perform the same steps of analysis, we take the Fourier transform, and then we take a line cut along QY and QX and plot these line cuts. You can see that there's actually quite a huge difference between the intensity of these Bragg peaks. It's on the order of about double. And what this shows is that now, even though we're in the same field of view, C4 symmetry has now been broken in charge transfer energy. So this was the first hint of something was going on here, so we decided to look into this further. So let me scroll down here, and then in this third panel here, we define the nematic order parameter, which I define on the top here. And from this, we can see that nematic icing domains exist. And taking this one step further, by applying intra-unit cell averaging inside each domain, we can clearly visualize the difference between oxygens in the x direction and oxygen in the y direction. So for example, if we take all of the unit cells inside this red domain and average them, this is what the variation of the charge transfer energy looks like. So here the yellow marks the copper sites and the black crosses mark the oxygen sites. So here you can clearly see OX is much higher than OY, and the splitting here is about 50 MeV. But then if you look at the topograph, this splitting is not seen. And vice versa, if you intra-unit cell averaging in the blue domains, you see the opposite effect, that the OY is higher than the OX. And therefore you see these icing domains, and that there is clearly some kind of energy splitting going on. So if we define another order parameter, the d-symmetry intra-unit cell order parameter, which is physically different, we actually end up getting the same result. And this result is highly correlated with the order parameter defined previously. This increases the confidence in our result. But also, we notice something interesting here too, that at about minus 900 millielectron volts, you're able to see the interstitial oxygen dopant atoms, and you're able to pinpoint the location of these to very high precision. And even just by eye, it seems that these dopant atoms pin the domain walls of these nematic domains. And to look at this a bit more statistically, if you thought of the distance of a dopant from these domain walls and visualize them Poisson randomly, you would get the gray curve seen, and then the red curve is the data we've actually produced. So you can see the spike here, that they have a tendency to lie quite close to the domain wall. And this is giving some first level evidence that dopant pinning is what deranges this orbital order. So overall, sublattice resolved charge transfer energy imaging reveals intra-unit cell rotational symmetry breaking, and therefore orbital order at the charge transfer energy. And this discovery has a striking analogy to the iron-based high-temperature superconductors, where orbital ordering is crucial to the superconducting state. Thank you for listening.